1. When I was about 12, I was in boarding school. The school term ended and I came home for the school holidays to my childhood home that my mom had only recently moved back into, after having had tenants for some time. There were still unpacked boxes piled high in the dining room, and furniture that was out of place. Happily, my old friend Emma, who had been in a different school, was invited over, as I had not seen her in a long time. That evening, out of boredom or whatever you might call it, my mother, Emma, and I decided to play a game called Glassy Glassy. Glassy Glassy is basically the poor man's Ouija board. All it takes is a drinking glass turned upside down and scraps of paper on either side of a small glass, with the words yes and no. As we three put our fingertips to the bottom of the overturned glass, it eventually started moving very slowly with the questions we asked. Very stupid questions. Are you a ghost? And such. As the night wore on, the glass moved quicker and quicker under our fingertips, and I even accused my mom of pushing the glass and making a fool of me. My mother laughed it off and said it was just our subconscious moving the glass. The longer we played, the more efficiently the glass moved, to the point where it was so quick it almost moved and lost traction under our fingertips. I started to believe, but unlike my mother, I didn't believe it was subconscious, but rather some otherworldly spirit. I regretted this belief much more, as I will tell the events that unfolded long after this silly little game. Eventually, my mom and my friend got tired and bored, but I wanted to be extra sure about the glass movement, so I played a little while all by myself, eyes wide, with the fact that the glass was for sure moving of its own volition. It creeped me out some. Eventually, we all went to bed. My mom to her own room and my friend and I shared my bedroom. I gave up my single bed to my friend while I cozied myself in a makeshift bed on the carpet. I fell asleep soon enough, but had a very turbulent, restless sleep. I started to dream about being in the same lounge at night, with the furniture stacked all over. In my dream, I decided to make my way to the bedroom. I could feel myself bumping my shins against furniture in my dream. I reached the passage door that led to my bedroom, but it was closed. I reached out for the handle of the door, but could only feel the smoothness of the door. It felt so realistic, I started panicking as to why I could not open the door. I started beating at this door in my dream, trying over and over to grab the handle to no avail. Moments later, I heard my mother calling me, and I woke up. Still beating the wall with open hands while standing on top of the single bed, my friend was still sound asleep. My mom standing at my door, perplexed. I had no idea how I managed to walk up onto the bed in my sleep state, but it was extremely scary. The following day, I tried my best to explain to my mom about the dream, but she waved me off. Now, if you think this horror ends here, no. I endured a further 6 months or so of paranormal nocturnal happenings, but never again sleepwalking. I had to return to boarding school, and no sooner I was back virtually every night, I was suddenly awakened to apparitions next to or above my bed. By apparitions, I would jolt awake to see an imaginary sandal or some object flying across me over my bed. Soundless, translucent apparitions which I knew were not real, but were there for my eyes to see nonetheless. Once or twice I was suddenly awake to see a dorm mate standing next to my bed. I could even call out their name, only for this apparition to dissolve and fade away in front of my eyes. I even sat up to check if my dorm mate was in her bed. And there she was, sound asleep. I was just terrified of sleeping every night. Every night would at best bring a creepy waking experience, or, at worst, some sort of apparition in sheer terror. I could not tell my dorm mates or my teachers, as I was sure they would not believe me or see it as a cry for attention. I just endured this for months on end and tried to pray, sleep in certain positions, or whatever might improve the situation. A part of me wondered if I was going mentally ill, but another part knew that all this started ever since I played that Glassy Glassy. I tried to convince myself it was in my mind, although I knew I was just lying to myself. Another school holiday at the end of the year rolls around and I'm back home with Mom, but the fear hasn't left me, although the encounters started happening much less. On this particular holiday, my mom's friend Mandy is staying in the night. My mom and her are sitting in my mom's room watching movies and chatting away. I did whatever I did as a kid, playing, watching TV, and eventually decided I'm going to go to sleep. My room was a bit untidy. The windows were closed, and I had a stack of heavy books on the dresser next to my bed, topped off with some paper and cardboard. I switched off the light and settled down to sleep, and was just on the point of deep sleep when I heard some scratching noises of the papers and card laying on the dresser right next to my bed. I opened my eyes and saw another apparition, the same translucent type that somehow showed up no matter the dark. Its hands were fidgeting with the paper and card, and as I looked at it, it seemed to look at me. The form was the form of my mom's friend Mandy, same height, same hair, and green eyes that I could see in the dark. For the second or two, it just stared at me while touching the paper. What terrified me the most is that this time it wasn't just me seeing things. I was hearing it touch something. Before I could even spring up to turn on the light, I heard a crashing of the books from the dresser onto the floor. I bounded out of bed in one leap and put the light on. Terrified, I surveilled what was happening behind me. The huge, heavy books that had been neatly piled on the dresser were strewn across the floor. So far spread out that it would not have landed so far had they collapsed naturally. I was so creeped out, and the book that had been on top was an old book called The Great Controversy Between Christ and Satan. Gosh, just for added spooky and dramatic effect. Still, I knew this possession of me was real, and I had unleashed something awful that night of Glassy. But the conscious, logical part of my mind told me to go ask Mandy if she'd been in my room. I knocked and asked Mandy and my mom. They were both relaxing on bed, watching a movie in their room, and they said no. They looked at me as though I was crazy. Fortunately, that incident was the last of them, as this problem left me. It really terrified me as a kid, and although I told my mom about the things that happened, and that it started with Glassy, she definitely didn't take me seriously. I've only told a very few people in my adult life, as I imagine they would think I am crazy or a liar. It's 100% the truth, and very real. 2. It happened a long time ago in the 1970s, and a lot of people it happened to are gone now. However, my oldest brother remembers it pretty well, and my second oldest brother remembers a few things that happened around him as well. I don't remember any of this at all, as I was a newborn baby. I was told this story many times by my mother, and my brothers and sister and many cousins witnessed it, and swore it all happened. So apparently there was this older lady who was related on the opposite bloodline of ours to one of our cousins, Alma. The old lady was very ill, and knew she was dying. She talked to my cousin about some cookbooks she wanted her to have when she passed away, because she knew that Alma liked cooking, and she wanted her to have them. She was very specific, though, about 3 or 4 special cookbooks that she wanted to go to her daughters. Maybe they had some special family recipes in them or something. Anyhow, she was very clear that Alma was not to take these cookbooks, but everything else was okay. So, eventually, the old lady passed away, and they were clearing out her things. My cousin Alma took the cookbooks she was told she could have, and for some stupid reason, she took the ones that the old lady specifically wanted her daughters to have as well. I don't know where her daughters were at this time, but I was told that she basically stole these books that were meant for someone else. So now, the way my mom told it, my cousin was out for the old lady's funeral and stuff, and she came out to stay at our house. My mom said that when she was talking on her phone, just before she came over, that she found it strange because the phone line was very static and crackly, sounding like a really bad connection, which in fairness it could have been. But my mom, in hindsight, thought it may have been what she later brought to our house with her. I'm not sure how long this stuff lasted, but I know it lasted for quite a few days at least. As soon as Alma came over to our house to stay for a bit was when it all started. She had brought the things that had been left to her by the old lady, as well as the book she took without permission. Weird things started happening almost immediately. Knocks and bumps in the walls. Silverware in the cabinets jingling and moving inside the drawers on its own. Like you could hear it rattling and bumping together, metallic-sounding noises. It would go to bed, and under the covers of a fully made, undisturbed bed, it would find cutlery like butter knives, spoons, and forks, just sitting there. Alma was getting the worst of this stuff, though, and she would hear knocks and bangs in her room or under her bed. Her hair would get pulled in her sleep and other stuff that basically was not letting her rest. During this time, my middle brother says he saw books move on their own. Cookbooks, I assume. Also, a whittled, very distinct piece of wood someone was messing around carving with got thrown out in the woods when they were done with it. When they came back into the house, the exact same piece of wood was on the stove. Things kept getting weirder and louder, and my mom was getting really scared one day, and they all went into the bedroom I was sleeping in as a baby. I guess it was quite a commotion going on in the house, and they all ran into my room to be safe together and make sure I was okay. Whatever this entity was would not go in the room where I was for some reason. Anyhow, they were all in the room I was in, and they could hear this thing scratching on the door and rattling it. They heard a disembodied voice speak, as if messing with the door. And all they heard was it say in a raspy, croaky voice was the word, "Cook, cook, cook." My cousin then broke down and confessed to my mom that she had taken cookbooks that were not for her. My mom was very upset with her and told her to take the books back to the old lady's house that morning. The morning they were taking the books back, my sister was going with Alma because she was too scared to go there on her own after all that happened. My sister was holding the stack of books, and Alma said she was done with them all and was going to take them all back. Just as she said that, each book she stole came off the stack my sister was holding, and each one landed right on top of the other on the floor, perfectly on top of each other one at a time. Alma did not want anything more to do with anything from that house and returned all of it. All activity in our house stopped after that, and all was good. The question I have is, why would it be avoiding an infant's room? Maybe she just liked babies. One other thing I forgot to mention, also, is my mom tried some pickle recipes from some of these cookbooks before she knew some of them were stolen. She said everything she made was messed up and didn't turn out properly, in weird ways like dill pickles becoming almost jelly-like, etc. If you made it all the way to this, thanks a lot. I've been waiting a long time to tell this story. I know a lot of people will say this is all made up, but it is true as it was told to me by family and family friends that saw things happen as well. 3. I was in the car riding with my boyfriend on a cool road surrounded by forest. It's a reservation for a lot of animals, wolves, llamas, farm animals, located in a wealthier area. Kind of like a secluded destination spot. Me and my boyfriend were driving to our long boarding location, and looking out the window, in front of a nicer house along the trail, not anything near where the animal reservations are, I saw a bald eagle's head peeking out from the ground. My first thought was, whoa, eagle, and then I thought about how low it was to the ground. A sense of confusion hit me, and there was a little bit of grass in front of it, so I wait until I can see it fully. As we drive past the grass, we see the body. Imagine a gopher standing up straight with human-oriented feet and the head of a bald eagle. I yelled at my boyfriend, "What the fuck is that? Do you see that?" He turns, and it's about to be out of eye line. His head whipped towards us and looked at the car dead on. I wish I could describe the feeling of making eye contact and the indescribable creature, but the closest thing I can relate it to is your body taking a screenshot, full of curiosity and dread. When it passes, my boyfriend stops, looks over at me, and goes, "What was that?" I have literally never seen him so shocked. I tell him to reverse immediately. No cars, don't worry. And when we look, it's just gone. He pulled over and we started freaking this shit out, as I'm frantically trying to find what mythological creature we just witnessed, as he's on the side of the road trying to see if it's still there. Weird things happen to me all the time, but I have poor eyesight and believe in ghosts. So my boyfriend normally just humbles me and tells me it's just my eyes playing tricks. I could tell he was freaking out, which made me freak out. So he's trying to calm the mood down by saying it was probably just an eagle from the reservation eating a gopher. And then I ask about the feet, and how it's summer and we live in the Midwest and there's no eagle reservation in the area, and that was not a fucking eagle. We both saw it and freaked out in the same way. He just continues excusing it by saying it was probably just a weird automated outdoor decoration. So I ask, then where is it? At that point, he goes silent for a bit and just said, I think that was the weirdest thing that has ever happened to me. Just purely dumbfounded. We go in longboard and we are talking about it the entire time. We spent the rest of the day trying to figure out what it was and scoping the area. I've come to the conclusion it was a griffin with no wings. So for any mythological creature connoisseurs, what was that thing? 4. I'm not super into the paranormal world by any means. I believe in ghosts, but I don't know if it's realistic. It's all first-hand. Anyways, my issue is a while back. I bought this doll from some store because I thought it looked unique. It's like a homemade stitched faceless doll in a linen dress. I brought it home and put it on a shelf that I use a lot in my dining room. I named it Abby. After that, I started getting really intense dreams that I was a different woman in an older time period who couldn't scream being burned repeatedly, and I could never escape the fires, and I always died at the end of the dream horrifically and in horrible pain due to the fires. I didn't think much of it, except when I'd wake up from these dreams, I'd always come to feel something was staring at me, and without fail, a few seconds later, I'd see some kind of shadowed figure standing in my bathroom, which is adjacent to my bed, and I leave the door open, which gets a good amount of moonlight in the night most of the time. I let it go for a while until one night, my husband woke up and then woke me up freaked out, because he saw someone in the bathroom, so we theorized and landed on the doll which was on that shelf in the dining room, which is directly under our master bath. This was all a few months or longer ago. I moved the doll to the coat rack shelf in our entryway to see if it would change anything, and the dream stopped and the figure stopped coming around, so I figured it was whatever. A few days go by and my son comes into our room crying and shaking, and won't stop begging us to sleep in our room because he keeps seeing a tall shadow peeking at him from behind his window curtains. We of course let him sleep in our room, and as we're moving the mattress we hear a dish break downstairs. All of the animals, including our cat, were in our room sleeping. I went down and the securely placed cookie jar lid for our son, which was tucked beside our mixer in a far corner on our counter, to avoid little fingers taking candy without asking, was on the kitchen floor and broken. After that, my husband told me that where I placed Abby was directly under our kid's room, namely his window. I didn't know what to do besides just plead with the thing and ask her to stop being mad or curious because she's freaking people out. Then everything went silent. She stopped, and no shadow has been seen since. Sometimes I will hold the doll and play with its hair because I do genuinely like it. I'm not scared of it or anything, but my husband doesn't like it at all and would see it gone in a heartbeat if I wanted. So now to last night. I had a horrible, horrible dream that I was myself sleeping in bed with my husband and our 2-year-old son, different kid, and my son kept going to a space heater that doesn't exist in our waking life and kept trying to touch it and kept getting burned. I kept telling my husband something was wrong in the dream and that our son is acting weird, but he kept brushing it off. Then our kid went to the fireplace that was randomly lit and tried to grab a log, and my husband finally believed me. He picked him up and I kept saying something was wrong. Something was wrong here. In my dream, I was trying to light some incense, but the lighter kept going out. Husband got stressed and lit a cigarette at the foot of our bed, but the cigarette kept going out as well. Then our son ran to the living room, and we followed because it was dark and he's being weird as fuck. When we got there, Abby was standing in the middle of the floor, like in a hogtied position, like she was a victim of some horrible thing. I don't know. My husband freaked out in my dream and ran to our room with our son. I followed, slightly mad and scared because it was tormenting my child. I started yelling for it to stop and to leave my son alone in a really angry voice. And then, right beside my husband, something invisible started pulling on the blind string. It was only targeting him at that point, and I screamed for it to go away, and then I woke up. The energy in the dream felt angry, and I woke up my husband and told him my dream. The next morning he said that he had moved the doll for a second to clean around it, and then tossed it back where it was, but he didn't want to tell me that when I was confused and scared last night. Is this doll low-key haunted and telling me that it's pissed at my husband? Or is my subconscious psyche, obsessed with this thing? I didn't know he moved her at all until he told me, and I wasn't having any dreams about her for months prior until this happened. If you listened this far, thank you, and please let me know if I'm crazy. I'm still not scared of her or anything like that. 5. When I was a kid in Mexico, we loved to play hide-and-seek with all the kids in the neighborhood at night. The houses were so close together that you could jump from roof to roof, and with everyone being friendly and knowing each other, they wouldn't mind if we did get on the roof. We had my cousins come over for dinner, and our parents were just out on the porch talking, having a couple of drinks. Some of the kids came over and asked if we wanted to play. It was already dark out, and this is when we especially like to play, so we agreed. There was this one girl I had a thing for, who also happened to join that night. I knew if I could get her alone, I might have a chance to kiss the girl. I knew she liked me too, so it would all work out. We all gathered in the middle of the street and randomly chose who would count when all the other kids would run and hide. So, as the kids started counting, I looked at the girl, waving at her to come follow me. Holding my hand, I led her to my aunt's house, which was vacant at the time. She was on vacation, and I knew the house was empty. I didn't see any other kids go there. Front door was locked, so we ran to the back and checked if it was locked too. And it was, but the back of the house, my aunt had an old washing machine, so we knew we could get on the roof from there. I helped her up first, and when she got up, we could hear someone coming, so I told her to go and hide. She ran off. I was able to make it to the roof not long after. And I knew for sure someone was searching. The house next to my aunt's was having the second story redone. I hid in a half-completed bathroom. In here, I thought I was alone, but I felt someone grab my hand. It was pitch black in there. I couldn't see who it was, but I heard a soft voice whisper, "It's just me. Don't worry." It was most definitely her, so she squeezed my hand a little more. We hid for some time, and it was great. Then from afar, we could hear all the kids saying, "We give up." We had won the round. I came out of the bathroom and looked down at the street where all the other kids were. That's when I saw her clear as day looking up at me. I froze. If she was down there, then whose hand am I holding? Slowly, turning my head, I could still feel the grip of whoever's hand I was holding. With it still being dark, all I managed to see was the glow of two red eyes looking right at me. No face. I wasn't the only one to see it when I got down from the roof, and when I jumped down, all the kids were pointing up and behind me, asking me who that was. They could see the red eyes too. We stopped playing immediately and went inside one of the other kids' houses. We talked about what we saw, but only briefly. We were all scared. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Paranormal Stories, episode 308. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Please do press the like button before you go, thank you kindly. Okay, let's see, I think we have a little birthday shout out to give today, and today's shout out goes to Sugary Space Sprinkles. It's been nice to see you pop up back in the community in the last few months, Sugary Space Sprinkles. Now, as your birthday is near the end of the month, I think you can celebrate right on into January. I think that seems quite reasonable, doesn't it? So you make sure you're taking care of yourself and spoiling yourself with all sorts of good and yummy and wonderful things. And if you are busy, as we can get at this time of year, make sure you take a little time for yourself, yeah? Now, before I go, I'd like to sing happy birthday. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear sugary space sprinkles. Happy birthday to you. Alrighty, and let's move right along to Hellfreezer's question of the day. And today's question is a bit random, but it's something I saw earlier. Who is in your opinion, the greatest wrestler or sports person of another type turned actor? For me, it's a toss-up between John Cena, because he did great work on Peacemaker, and Vinnie Jones, a former football/soccer player who's become very good as an actor over the years. Please let me know what you think in a comment below. And with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourself.